Welcome back, dear students, for the English class. Today in this video, let's listen to the explanation of the lesson Careful Hands. This is your lesson number 6. So kindly open page number 52 and listen to the reading of the lesson, and even here I am going to explain the lesson to you. Kindly see the textbooks. Let's start. Once there was a little boy called Hans. He lived in Germany with his mother, near a great forest. His grandmother lived in a small cottage not far away. As you observe in this picture, this is Hans and his mother. So they lived in Germany. Germany is a country in Europe. And their house was near a great forest. A forest is a place where wild animals live. Even closer to his house, that is not far away, his grandmother lived in a small cottage. So, Hans lived with his mother in Germany, and this is his grandmother who lived is also in Germany but in a small cottage. One day his mother said, Hans, I am going to the market. Go and spend the day with your grandmother. One day Hans' mother said to Hans, my little boy, I am going to the market. So you will be alone in the house. Please go to your grandmother's house and spend the day with your grandmother. Hans went along the dusty path through the forest. He played in his grandmother's garden all day. As you see, Hans goes to his grandmother's house playing along the dusty path. And whole day he played in his grandmother's garden. In the afternoon, his grandmother said, Hans, take this needle to your mother. Look at it carefully. In the afternoon when Hans was returning home to his mother, grandmother gives him a needle and tells him to carry this needle to his mother and to look at the needle very carefully. On the way home, a hay cart passed Hans. So, when Hans was taking the needle, Hans took the needle and he is back to his house. On the way, he sees a hay cart passed by. As you see in this picture, this is a hay cart. Hans put the needle in the hay cart and walked behind the cart. Hans put the needle in the hay and walked behind the cart. At last he got home, but he could not find the needle. So, a hay cart is a cart where it carries dry grass or the cut and dried plants which can be fed to animals. So as you see in this picture, this is a hay cart. So what does Hans do? He puts the needle in the hay cart and he walks behind the hay cart. But when he reaches home, he cannot find the needle. "You are a foolish boy, Hans," said his mother. "Put a needle in your sleeve, like this, not in the hay." So Hans' mother shouts at Hans, saying that if grandmother had given you needle, you could have put it in your sleeve. Why did you place it in a hay? So now you cannot find the needle, as the needle is very small, and in the hay it's very difficult to find the needle. So next time, remember, you need to put a needle in your sleeve this way, and you should not place it in the hay. The next week, Hans went to his grandmother's house again. He played the whole day. Later his grandmother said, "Hans, please take this knife to your mother." So in the next week, Hans once again comes to his grandmother's house. So this time, Hans takes the knife. So grandmother gives knife to Hans, saying that you should give this knife to your mother. So let's see what Hans does. Hans started off for home. So he goes home now. He remembered his mother's words. What does he remember? He remembered something. He put the knife carefully inside his sleeve. Why does he do that? Because last time when he had lost the needle in the hay, his mother had suggested him to keep the needle in the sleeve. So what does he do? He keeps the knife in his sleeve. He thinks that's the correct place to keep the knife, and he places the knife in his sleeve and he walks back to his mother's house. He goes to his house. When he got home, the knife was not there. It had fallen out on his way home. So when Hans reaches his house, he searched the knife, he searched in his sleeve. But the knife was not there. Where was the knife? The knife had fallen out on his way home. So the knife had fallen on the way back when he was returning to his house. The knife had fallen on the road. So the knife was not there. "Oh, foolish boy," said his mother. "You should have put it in your pocket like this." So his mother says, "You are such a foolish boy. If you keep the knife in your sleeve, it will fall." So maybe it had fallen out somewhere on the road. So remember, next time you should keep the knife, you should have kept the knife in your pocket this way. So the Hans' mother says this statement to Hans. The next week, Hans played with a little puppy at his grandmother's house. In the afternoon he said, "Granny, can I take this puppy home?" So once again in the next week, Hans comes to his grandmother's house. So he plays with the puppy in his grandmother's house. But when it was time to return home in the afternoon, Hans asked his grandmother, "Granny, shall I take this puppy home? It's so cute. Can I take this home?" So grandmother says, "Yes. Yes, but look after it carefully." "Yes, but look after it carefully," said his grandmother. Hans stuffed the puppy into his pocket. When he took the puppy out at home, it did not move. So grandmother says, yes, my dear Hans, you can take the puppy home. But remember, you should look after him very carefully. You need to take care of the puppy. So what Hans does? He remembers his mother's words. Last time his mother said to keep the knife in the pocket, and that's the correct place to keep the knife. Now what he does? He thinks the correct place to keep the things is a pocket and keeps the puppy in the pocket. He stuffed. Stuffed means he packed. He packs the puppy and he keeps in his pocket. And when he goes home, what happens? It did not move. Oh, what have you done? You foolish boy, cried his mother. So, you are such a foolish boy. What have you done? So his mother cries. You told me to put it in my pocket, said Hans. Hans says, Mummy, it was you who said me to put it in the pocket. After a few minutes, the puppy opened its eyes. Completely, the puppy was unconscious and it did not move. As Hans stuffed the puppy very tightly into his pocket, the puppy could not breathe and it had closed its eyes. So what happens after a few minutes? The puppy opens its eyes. You're foolish, Hans said his mother. You should have pulled it along tied to a string. You are foolish, Hans. So his mother says, you are such a foolish boy. You could not understand. You could have taken it along the road by tying a string. You could have pulled it along tied to a string. So you could have put a string to his neck and you could have pulled it along. So that was the correct way to bring puppy home. Next week, Hans took the puppy to his grandmother's house. After tea, his grandmother said, here is a piece of meat. Carry it home to your mother. So what Hans does the next week? Hans takes the puppy once again back to his grandmother's house, and after having tea, his grandmother gives a piece of meat. This is a piece of meat, and she tells to give to his mother. Carry it home and give to your mother. Hans tied the meat with a string and dragged it along behind him. The puppy followed Hans, nibbling the meat. So what happens now? Hans thinks the correct way to carry the meat is tying a string to the meat and pulling it along the road. So now Hans does the same thing. He ties the meat to the string and pulls it along. And what does the puppy does? The puppy follows Hans and he eats the meat. When Hans got home, he had no meat. You should have put it in a piece of paper and put the packet on your head, said his mother. You foolish Hans, you could have wrapped the meat in the paper and carried it along on your head. That is the correct way to bring the meat. So once again Hans' mother scolds Hans for his mistake. Next week, Hans' grandmother gave him a pound of butter. Hans wrapped the butter in some paper and put the packet on his head. So what Hans does? He wraps the butter in some paper and he keeps that butter on his head. When he reached home, his mother looked at him and cried out, "What is all that yellow stuff on your head and back?" So what Hans has done? He has carried the butter on his head, and due to the heat of the sun, the butter has melted and it has completely gone on his head, on his shoulder and back. So he's completely wet with the butter. Yellow, all yellow stuff on his head and back. Looking at his condition, his mother cries out loudly, "What is that, Hans? What have you done?" The butter had melted in the sun. "You are a foolish boy," said his mother. Once again, Hans gets the scoldings from his mother and she says that you are a foolish boy. Adapted from a story by the Brothers Grimm. So this beautiful lesson, Careful Hands, is taken from the story by the Brothers Grimm. Thank you.